back with Coffee with Moshe. Today is Tuesday. I know it's the 26th day of the counting of the Omer in biblical terms, but it's May 5th, I think. Something like that. It's sometime in May. Okay. I was thinking, people ask me all the time, what is the difference between our Krav Maga and other styles of Krav Maga? We could talk about the differences in terms of specific techniques, financial policies, whatever. There are many ways to discuss the differences, and that's why it's good to have these little chats. And of course, I've written thousands of blogs about these things, but to talk about here a little bit. The basic thing is that our Krav Maga is biblically based, you might say. It's a biblical system. Each person comes to the martial arts from their own background. And I come from, like you could say, a biblical background. And all these books here are all commentaries and so forth on the Bible and so forth. So, I wrote a book, as you know, Israel, a Nation of Warriors, which I showed you before. 1 second. Israel, a Nation of Warriors. But of course, this book is based on this book, the Bible. And this is where we get our values from, our ethics from, our attitudes from, and our approach to techniques. So I'd like to discuss something which I do discuss in my book. Let's go back to the book of Bereshit, which means in the beginning, Genesis. And here's a copy of the Bible, the Torah. Okay? Just to explain, what we have here is the original text, the translation into Aramaic by a convert named Onkelos, and these are all various commentaries that are established as essential to understanding the text. Okay, so we look here in chapter 14, and we see the following. We read the story that there were these kings who attacked some other kings, and they went to storm Sodom, and they defeated this area. Vaikhu et Lot, and they took Lot. Lot, sometimes they call him in English Lot, L-O-T. Vet Rechusho, and his property. Ben Achi Avram, he is the son of the brother of Abram. Now remember, in those days, Abraham was not called Abraham yet. He was called Avram, and then later on his name is changed from Avram to Avraham, Abram to Abraham. Now notice they say Lot is the son of the brother of Abraham, meaning he's his nephew. Vayelchu v'hu yoshev b'Sdom. Vayavo hapalit, and a refugee comes from the battlefield. Vayagedel Avram ha'ivri, and he spoke to Abram the Hebrew. Now of course in those days we were not called the Jews, we were called the Hebrews. V'hu shochen be'elonei Mamre, and he, Abraham, is residing in Elonei Mamre, ha'emori achi eshkol v'achi enar v'hem ba'alei brit Avram. He's established in a place where allies, members of the covenant, so to speak, people he has a agreement with. Now here's the important verse, chapter 14, verse 14. Vayishma Avram ki nishba achiv, and Abram heard that his brother was taken captive. Now this is important to understand. It's important to understand the text. That earlier it says Ben Achiv, his nephew, and here it says Achiv, his brother. What is the difference? The difference is that normally when somebody asks you for help, we're hardly related. I don't know you that well. But when I need your help, hey brother. So here, Lot was actually the son of the brother of Abraham, meaning he was his nephew. But in times of trouble, the text refers to him as his nephew, but Avram refers to him as his brother. He heard his brother was taken captive, meaning Avram, in a time of trouble, he didn't say my nephew, which is a more distant relative, but my brother, which is a closer relative. This shows us something. In times of trouble, if you're a good person, the person who needs your help is closer to you rather than further away. And the text continues, Vayarek et hanichav, he emptied out the members of his household, Yilidei Beito, those who are of his household, his disciples, the members of his household, Shumna Asar Ushloshmot, 18 and 300, Vayirdof Adan, and he chased the enemy until Dan. Now this is very important to understand this text. In the Aramaic, it translates as, here's the Aramaic, Ushma Avram Are Ishtabe Ahohi, Vizariz Yath Olmohi, and he hurried up his young men, meaning the Alam means a young man, Alma is a young girl. He hurried up the young men, Zariz, hurry, Yilidei Vethei, those who were born to his household, Tilat Meya Watamni Asar Urdaf Adan. Okay, now in the traditional way, we read the Bible with a chant. And the chant is like a musical tone, and it teaches us how to understand the text. In other words, we have an expression in Hebrew, Kri'ah nechona chatzi havana. Correct reading is half the understanding. If you read something in the wrong context, if you read it in the wrong rhythm, you misunderstand it. It's all about the pausing. So I'll read it to you in the traditional way. Vayishma Avram, and Abram heard, Ki nishbo achiv, that his brother was taken captive. So those are two things. He heard. That's the first thing. Open up your ears and hear. Vayarek et hanichav yelidei veitho, and he emptied out all those disciples who were born to his household, 18 and 300, and he chased them till Dan. So now we look at the biblical commentaries, and we look at the commentary called the Ibn Ezra, who is his name was Ibrahim Ibn Ezra, a 12th century Spanish Jewish rabbi, and he writes the following: Vayarek shenatan lehem kalei milchama. Abraham, Father Abraham the patriarch, gave every one of his men the utensils of war, weapons. Kitam vayarek chanit, like it says in another place in the Bible, vayarek chanit, and he came with a spear. V'yesh omrim, and there are some who say lehotzi hacher mita'ara. He said the word vayarek also means to take the sword out of its, what do you call it, a sheath, pull it out. And it says, Hanichav, his disciples. So why are they called his disciples? And the rabbi answers, Shechincham pe'amim rabot b'milchama v'im lo nizkar. Because Abraham had trained them many times in the art of war, even though the text does not specifically mention it. So as I mentioned in one of our earlier chats, that we see here that Abraham was a combatives instructor. It says so right there. 800 years ago, the rabbi commented on the text from over 3,000 years ago. Abraham was a man of God, but Abraham was also a man who knew how to prepare for war. When he heard his nephew was taken prisoner, he took his men who had been trained for just such an occasion, he handed them weapons, and they went out and chased the enemy until the area of Dan. And, we'll just continue with this for a moment, and they beat them. They chased these men who were professional warriors. And what does it say next? Vayachalek alehem laila. The Aramaic says, V'ithpaleg alhun leila. He divided them at night into various strike forces. Huv avadav, him and his servants. Vayakem, and he beat them. Vayerdafem ad Hova, and he chased them until the area of Hova, Asher mismol Damasek, which is left of Damascus. Vayashev et kol harachush, and he retrieved all the property that was stolen. V'gam et Lot achiv, and also Lot his brother, Urchosho heshiv, and his property returned. V'gam et hanashim ve'et ha'am, and also all the women and the rest of the people that were there. He beat them. And that's Abraham's war story. We take this as a lesson for ourselves as part of our warrior tradition. In other words, we are peaceful people. Like it says about Jacob, Ish tam yashevu halim, a humble man, a simple man who dwells in a tent. But in times of fighting, in times of war, someone took your property, someone hurt your family, you empty out the weapons, you hand them out to the members of your household. Everyone is trained in war. Not, I'm into this, I'm into that. Makes no difference. You're into fighting. You're a member of this household, you learn how to fight. That's the lesson.